We study mass violence, and we help our partners document that violence and then figure out what the patterns are in the violence. One of the most important parts of figuring out the patterns is understanding what's not documented. What's gone missing? Who's been silenced? We can use statistical techniques to figure this out. Our work begins with lists. Lists usually of deaths. Each list identifies specific people by name, age, and sex, where and when they died. We put all the lists together, and we can calculate approximately, using probability theory, how many people are not on any of the lists. This is a very important figure, sometimes called the dark figure, because without this, our understanding of patterns can be distorted. We only see what we see, but we have to also understand what we cannot see. Let me give you an example of how we use lists to calculate what we cannot see. Imagine that you have two dark rooms. One is larger than the other, but you don't know which. The only tool that you have to examine the rooms is a handful of little rubber balls. When the balls bounce around the room, they don't make any noise. But when they hit each other, they make a little clicking noise. So we throw the balls into the first room and we listen and we hear. Okay? We collect the balls and we throw them into the second room with equal force and we hear. I think we agree that the second room must be larger because the balls have spread out. They've spread out and filled the room, and so they hit each other less frequently. Similarly, if we have multiple databases, and we throw all the lists from the databases together, and we listen to how often the databases document the same people, we can use that information to make an inference, a statistical estimate, about how many people are missing. This technique is called multiple systems estimation in statistics, and in population ecology, it's called capture-recapture. However, for our purposes, the important thing to know is that with multiple lists, we can figure out what's missing from all the lists. Once we receive the lists, we will conduct record linkage. This is a process by which we link together all the records that refer to each individual victim. This means it's okay if the lists that you collect have lots of duplication, both within a list and duplication with other lists that may be collected by other organizations. That's fine. Duplication is useful information. We will control for it. The second process is estimation. Once we've linked all the lists together, we've identified all the unique victims, we will estimate the dark figure. This estimation, as I mentioned earlier, is done by a technique called multiple systems estimation, or sometimes called capture-recapture. This technique has been used for several hundred years by statisticians, and in the last couple of decades, we've made tremendous progress advancing this method. We've done multiple systems estimations of the deaths in conflict in countries as diverse as Guatemala, Colombia, Kosovo, Sierra Leone, East Timor, and many others. We've done the work for truth commissions, international criminal tribunals, and non-governmental organizations who are our partners. The goal of these projects is to determine the total magnitude of deaths, both the people we can identify and the dark figure of those who we cannot identify. The work has been very important. It's had a lot of impact in trials, in truth commissions, and in establishing the historical memory of deaths in the past. It's important to remember everyone who's died in Sri Lanka's conflict. And the first thing to do is to write down everyone we can remember. So I want to ask you to reach out to your neighbors, to your friends, to your colleagues, to your relatives, and ask them to tell you of everyone that they can remember who died in a conflict. What was that person's name? What was his or her parents' names, his or her age, sex, location, and date of death, and manner of death. How did they die? We have templates available for you to download to fill this information in. You can do this with friends or with a community organization that you may belong to, and then you can send us these spreadsheets. We will keep them in strictest confidence. We will not share them with anyone else. We will use them only to link to the other lists in order to create a single list of all the unique names of the people who died, so that we can remember them by name and so that we can estimate the number of people who we cannot name, the number of people whose names may already be lost, or whose relatives and friends may be not able to tell us their story. I've been doing this work since 1991, and in every country I've worked in, it's been really important to remember the dead, to remember who they were in life, and to remember how they died. I think this project can be a big step in that direction. I hope you'll join me and my partners from the International Truth and Justice Project for Sri Lanka in helping to enumerate the dead so that they can be remembered, and so that we can remember even those whom we cannot name.
In May 2019, we commemorate the 10th anniversary of the end of the final phase of the war in Sri Lanka. As you know, I sat on the panel of experts, and at that time we estimated the death toll to be around 40,000 people. It is absolutely shocking that so many years have passed and we are no closer to understanding what that death toll actually is. So I would urge all of you, my friends, to go out to every family who lost a member during the war, to in fact collect the information around whether somebody disappeared, somebody was left behind, or somebody went missing, and send that information to us so that we can collate it and effectively work towards some kind of reckoning around the final death tally.